First off, I want to know a little bit about like your background when it comes to like heavier rock / metal music. So do you remember when you heard metal / heavier rock for the first time yourself? How old were you?
Yeah, actually, I was growing up in the glam rock times. That was like with Sweet, Slate, T-Rex. Oh, I loved Mark Bowen. That was my favorite. Susie Quadro, Alice Cooper. And I was like 6, 7, 8 years old. And when I really fell in love with music, it was actually when I was 3 years old. I was a little girl. I could just make this record player work. And there was one song which totally got me hooked. And it was Lucille and Little Richard. That was the one. And I loved that song so much. And I was 3 years old. And that was when my dream, started growing to sing and to eventually have a band. And and then glam rock times, it was very influential. And I loved Led Zeppelin, Rolling Stones. And then a little bit later, I had my first band when I was 15, 16 years old. And that was when metal just started to become bigger and bigger. And there weren't even magazines out there. There were maybe some fanzines, and it was like handwritten notes and then photocopies. And it was like, very, like the scene was very passionate, but very small. And then my first band I had when I was 15, 16 was called Snakebite, then Beast, then Attack, and then Warlock. That was 1982. And then we knew we were part of the heavy metal scene, and we saw our first bands. The first band I've seen, which was unbelievable, it was in 1980, it was Whitesnake. And David Coverdale was a god. He was so amazing. His voice, and he was such a great front man. And the second show was Judas Priest, and support band was Accept. And then my third band was Ronnie James Dio. And I could definitely, I was growing up with the best. So, and the best thing was I was on tour with them later on, and we did some duets together, and touring. And my very first tour we did in 1986, that was the biggest tour. It was the Turbo Tour, and it was, we supported Judas Priest, and Judas Priest was my favorite band, I tell you. So, and we always stayed friends, and now I had the great chance to do 2 duets with Rob Halford for this new album, which is coming out soon, 27th of October. It's called Conquerors, Forever Strong and Proud, and there are 2 great duets with Rob Halford on there. One classic Priest song, Living After Midnight. It's of the British Steel album, my favorite album. And then a choice, Rob Halford wanted to record one song. He said, I always wanted to do that with you. And I said, okay, what is it? He said, Total Eclipse of the Heart. And I thought, wow, that's very, very interesting, very unusual. And then we did it. And actually we just finished it a couple of weeks ago, and it will be the next video. So yeah, I'm so grateful. But I could definitely learn from the best, and growing up with the best bands. And there weren't any women in the early 80s, just a handful maybe. But
I was actually going to ask you about that were there like only like men that you sort of like looked up to as an influence around that time, because you were pretty much the only like women doing heavier music?
Actually, you know what? I wasn't even thinking of that. Yeah, all my heroes, it was Rob Halford, Lemmy, David Coverdale, Ronnie James Dio, and there were not many women out there doing it. And of course, in the glam rock times, Susie Quadro, she was awesome. I loved her. And but in the metal scene, that was very rare. And later on, I met all these great women, and now it's very balanced. It's actually pretty cool. But in the early 80s, there was I knew of Lita Ford and Joan Jett, the Runaways, and Girl School from England. And another cool band from England, Rock Goddess. I don't know if you know them.
Yeah.
Jodie Turner, I still love her so much. I thought she was she had such a great attitude, a great singer. And but that was about it. But I wasn't aware that there weren't any women doing it. My role models, that was okay, you know. I just loved Rob Halford, Lemmy.
So when you had like Snakebite, as you said, that was the first band, were you sort of like covering all these bands, and were you sort of first like mimicking these like Rob Halford and these singers before you developed like your own voice, or how did like your voice shape to become what it is today?
Yeah, actually, no, we never covered a song. It was we never did cover versions. It was all original material.
Okay, so you jumped
And
right on to write your own stuff.
yes, right away. And when we were on stage with other bands in the beginning, then we said, hey, let's do one song together. And, you know, they didn't know our songs, we didn't know their songs. And then we said, hey, let's do something we all know. And usually I was Living After Midnight or Breaking the Law. But yeah, other than that, it was all original songs. And my very, very first cover version I did actually pretty late. It was on the Force Majeure album. That was the follow-up of our album Triumph and Agony, which was really very successful. Yeah, and on Force Majeure, I did my very first cover version in 1989. And that was Procol Harum's A Wider Shade of Pale. I love that song so much, and I wanted to do it. And then we were in the studio. We recorded it in Philadelphia and in New York. Actually, in New York, it was Right Track Studio, and we started recording. And in Philadelphia, it was the Cajun Studios, and they had such a great room for recording drums. So we went to record drums there, and we were recording. Everything was really going well. And then the engineer said, hey, guys and girls, it's 6 o'clock in the morning. Let's, you know, finish the session. Let's start fresh next morning. You guys want to maybe play one more time, like a song we want to record the next day? And we said, okay, let's do a Wider Shade of Pale. And we did it, and that's the one you hear on the record. We recorded it the next day again, but it never had the same magic. The 6 o'clock in the morning version, the rehearsal, that was the one. And it was so good. It was so good. And yeah, and I invited the guys of Procol Harum. They listened to the version. They said, oh, awesome. And it was very important to me that they would like it, and you know, that we would get approval, you know, that we could cover that great song.
So in terms of like learning to sing, did it take like long time for you to figure out the right technique for the singing? So for example, that you wouldn't lose your voice when you were doing like more high pitch singing, or how long did that take for you? Actually,
I think it just popped out natural. I always could sing. I could sing 10 hours, full force. There was never any technique. It was just, I think it came out natural. But then when we had our first records out, first one was Burning the Witches, came out 83, 84. And then the second one was Hellbound, came out in 1985. Then actually we were doing some interviews, and some journalists were asking me if I'm a trained singer, if I went to university and stuff, and, you know, and studying, you know, singing. And I said, no. And it bothered me that I thought, man, you know, I would love to say or to tell them, yeah, I learned it, you know, and, you know, I studied it and stuff. So I took vocal lessons. And the lady, she was a teacher. She was American woman, and it was sinfully expensive too, but I did it because I wanted to tell everybody, hey, you know, I studied now and stuff. So
did you actually learn something from those lessons?
Well, the interesting part was I did it for a few years, and then after a while people said, hey Doro, you're singing like differently, right? And I said, yeah, I don't know. And I said, well, you know, I said, you like it? And many more people were saying that, you know, that it sounded different now. And then I said, you know what, Doro, you sounded much better before. What are you doing? And I said, I can't do it. I'm taking vocal lessons. It's super expensive. And now, you know, the people were telling me I sounded better before. And then, yeah, and then we hopped on tour with Judas Priest in 1986. And then I finished my vocal lesson. I thought, shit. And everybody said, hey, please sing like you did before. It was much cooler, much better. And I thought, man, you know, so I could tell everybody, yes, I learned something, you know, I took vocal lessons, but I think it didn't do me so good. And it was, yeah, I think it was good before. And yeah, you know, when you learn something from somebody, then it's maybe not natural, and you go by the rules and stuff, and then maybe you're thinking about, you know, breathing techniques and what you do, and before everything was all right. And
you sound more like you if you are not like trained too much, because if you are trained too much, then you are starting to sound like the others sound.
Right,
and for me, that isn't the way it should be. You should like learn by your own way always.
Yes, no, I think at least when you're a rock or metal singer or punk, you know, you just do what you feel. Of course, in classic, it's different. I guess you have to study it and stuff. But for rock, punk, metal, I think just be your natural self and give it your all. And I could always sing like 10 hours straight, 15 hours straight. I never lost my voice and stuff. So it was all like, you know, I guess, yeah, I did something right without being conscious or without knowing. So, and yeah, and actually, yeah, I was worried that I couldn't sing natural anymore when everybody said, oh, don't, you know. It was like, because the vocal teacher, she said, if you would sing like that, you will lose your voice in half a year. And now 40 years later, it's still going strong. So it's all good. It's all good. But
I was actually going to ask you about the Judas Priest tour, which was like your first one. That how did it go, like vocal wise, to like perform like night after night after night? Were your voice sort of already ready to do that, or were you like having hard times with your voice on the tour?
No, it was always there. It was always there. And usually I was sick as a dog, you know, like having a real bad cold, fever, you know, the whole stuff. But voice is always there.
Show must go on.
Yes, show must go on. And I tell you, when I see the fans, then everything is okay. Before and after a show, that's a different story, because then, you know, you have to lick your wounds. But when I'm on stage, when I see like happy faces, then that fills me up with so much energy, and it makes me happy. It makes the voice happy, and then I can sing like I could sing 10, 15 hours. It doesn't matter. One time I talked to Gene Simmons, and my manager said, hey, Gene, you know, Doro can always sing, you know, she will never lose her voice. And then Gene was all, you know, like surprised. He said, really? And then one time we did like hour after hour, and I think Gene was hoping that I would say, oh, stop, you know, let's go to the hotel, let's finish the session, but I didn't. And he said, wow, okay. And then everybody started to get really like tired. It was late at night. And then, you know, then Gene said, oh, okay. And my manager was all proud of the little girl, you know. So voice is always there, no matter what. Yeah.
Do you have like a specific warm-up routine for the shows, or are you like an old school type of person that you just go up on stage and warm up during the show, or how does it happen for you?
Yes, I never warmed up. I know my doctor would probably kill me, because he always said, yeah, better to warm up, but I never warm up. And yeah, and one time I asked Ronnie James Dio, and because he was always talking to the fans before the show or doing interviews, and I asked him, are you warming up? He said, oh, never. And I thought, okay, if Ronnie James Dio doesn't warm up, I don't warm up. So no, I never warmed up. And usually I'm always the one who's running on stage, because I'm the last one getting ready, you know, because of interviews or doing autograph session or talking to the fans. So I'm talking all days, and then it's show time. And
so it's already warmed up pretty much from the days of talking, sort of.
Yes, I really feel the longer you do it and the more you do it, the stronger the pipes are getting somehow.
Yeah.
And I guess it's like a muscle, and when you always use it, then it's in good shape. And I guess I'm lucky. I never had problems with the voice, it's always good. And yeah,
So,
even in the studio. And my power hour is actually 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. Like after
okay.
midnight, then I feel, I can sing the best. I feel I'm in good spirits. And yeah, it's the best time for me to lay down a vocal for album.
So,
Which the engineers, they're always like tired, because when they have kids, they get up early in the morning, 6 o'clock. And when I come into the studio, it's 8 o'clock at night. And then, and then 1, 2 o'clock, then I want to do it. But so far, it all worked out.
are there like some specific foods or drinks that you want to have before the show that you have felt that they help you with the singing? Or on the opposite side, something that you don't want to take before the shows that you have felt that they affect your singing somehow?
Actually, I'm pretty easygoing. Water is good. I need a water. I need a coffee to just to have a little, more energy when we play late. I mean, I told you my power hour is 1, 2 o'clock, but sometimes with jet lag and stuff, they can be different. Sometimes we fly to whatever, Brazil or Mexico or South America. Then I feel like, oh man, strong coffee is good, water is good. And I take some B12. I love that, just to get a little bit energy. But for the voice, when we tour in the winter time, then sometimes, I like the tea with ginseng and, little, but usually it's not there. When I turn around, I think, today I would like to have a little hot tea, then it's never there. And then, okay, doesn't matter. So, no, actually, no. I'm really easygoing. I think I'm not high maintenance at all. Just what I need is the audience, is the fans. When I feel they're in good spirits, then I don't need any medicine, nothing. That's all I need. And I mean, to always have your voice, drink a lot of water is good to, to have it moist. I did take it's an oil, usually you put it in your nose. It was called Colder Stop, and it has a lot of vitamin A, the retinol. I always put it in my throat to make it nice and moist, but I heard that it's not good, that it's not healthy, so I stopped doing it. But yeah, so I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I don't know exactly. And, everybody has different advice. Like every doctor you go to, say oil is good. And the others say, no oil. So actually, yeah, but I used to do a lot of this oil. And that was actually pretty good. I thought it was like lubricating the cords. But lately, in the last couple of years, I didn't use it. And it still was okay. So...
So it was more a mental thing.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. And what I need to be really in good shape is I need a lot of sleep.
Yeah.
And I envy people who just need 3, 4 hours. I need so much sleep, and that. Yeah, and I told actually my doctors I don't want to do it, and everybody said, different people, they said, man, it's just your nature, you just need it, don't fight it, just work with it. But if I don't sleep, I'm not myself, and the voice, I feel it hurts a little bit. But when I sleep a long time, then I feel better and I can sing better. But going on tour in a tour bus, that's sometimes impossible to sleep good, because it's rocky, the streets get so bad, it's and then everybody's always screaming or partying or loud music. Then oh man, so for a singer on tour, that's not so easy, when you play drums or bass, keyboards, guitar, whatever, I think you can get away with partying a lot. But I don't drink much, or I don't drink at all, and I don't take drugs, so I guess that's pretty good. And my drug is the music and the fans. That's what gives me the ultimate high and makes me happy. And lifts me up and gives me good energy, and so I don't need any alcohol whatsoever, and I never took drugs, and I never thought I want to do it or I needed it. I grew up in a truck. My dad, he was a truck driver, so from early on I was always driving everybody home, and I drove the tour bus for a little while, so I was always the one who had to stay sober and clean. Everybody was drinking and beer and and I thought, okay, when they have a good time, I'm happy. When they enjoy, and I make sure that I bring everybody home safely, and I'm still that way, and I like to make sure everybody's taken care of. That's probably the mom instinct. I don't have kids. I don't know what it's like, but still, I like to care. And my band members, they're grown men, but sometimes they're kids too. So
So obviously during your career, you've released a lot of albums with Warlock and obviously also with Doro. But are there like some specific albums that you could pinpoint from your own discography where you have felt that you've taken like a big step forward as a singer, learned something new about yourself, or changed the style you sing, or do something like completely different?
Yeah, actually there were 2 records. One record, to start, the Triumph and Agony album. That did wonders for me, because we did Burning the Witches, then Hellbound, and then True Steel. And True Steel, that was a very difficult record to make, because the record company, they put so much pressure on us, and they wanted to have a real successful record, commercial. And for a metal band, that word commercial or radio friendly, oh man, that's not a good word to hear. So they tried so many things with us, writing, we had to write hit songs, which, we were just writing songs. And suddenly it became difficult to even write songs because it didn't come out natural anymore. So then they said, well, and I was totally for it, because I'm not a native speaker. So they said, we have somebody to check the lyrics, to look over the lyrics. And I thought that's a good idea, because when you're not a native speaker, sometimes, you can make some stupid things, and sometimes we had to do stuff, throughout the dictionary. So I said, no, that's really good. I want to sound good and professional. So they had this English guy, and then he didn't understand metal. He was not from the metal background, and we got together in Hamburg, and I felt, man, it's not, I don't know, it doesn't work out so good. And he said, Doro, you know what? You go to your hotel, and I do something. I tweak it a little bit. I just, make it a little bit better, like English wise. And I thought, okay, good. And he said, I call you when I'm ready and when I can show you something. I said, okay. So I was waiting in my hotel, the guy didn't call up. And then suddenly I got a phone call. He said, Doro, man, I have something, please come over to my home. I want to show you something. And I talked to the record company. They love it. And I said, you talked to the record company already? I said, before you showed me the tweaked lyrics. And he said, yes, but it's okay. They're all hits. The record company loves it. I said, oh my God. I immediately went over to his place, and I said, man, you showed the record company before you showed me, man. I think that's not so cool, but let me see what you had. And I said, there are some songs I really love. I don't want you to change too much, and I definitely don't want you to change the titles. He said, no, I just tweaked it a little bit. So I looked over the lyrics, and oh man, he changed everything. I thought, oh no. And he said, but the record company loves it. And back in the day, in the 80s, the record companies, the agencies, the managements, they had so much power, so you couldn't say no, it was like, otherwise you would lose your record deal, or, and I thought, oh man, it's not what I want to sing. But he said, no, I guarantee you it's a hit. And the record company thinks it's a hit. And so I sang some of the songs under tears. And one of the songs, one of my favorite songs, it had a really cool metal title before, but the guy changed it, and the title was then Igloo on the Moon. I said, what? I don't know what that means, and no metalhead can relate. What, you know? And yeah, and I had to sing that song under tears, and then everybody said, yeah, it should sound a little bit more polished, and so the whole record, it was for us, for the band, it was a little nightmare to do. And then they wanted to have a big producer name. That was the thing to do in the 80s. So they found somebody who mixed it, but he really mixed it very radio friendly. And then it came back, and the whole band, man, we immediately started fist fighting. You know, it was like, the demo sounded so great. It was real cool. It was metal. It was real. It was honest. And then we had a record which was a little bit more polished, which, looking back on it, it's not that bad. You know, now I don't even hear, you know, the stuff, but in 86, every little nuance was very important. So we didn't have such a good time making this album. And then we played the legendary Monsters of Rock festivals in Castle Donington, England. And then we hopped on tour with Judas Priest, and we said, we don't want to play the new album, but everybody said, you have to play the new album. So it was so much pressure. So I had a little chance to do a promotion tour in New York, in America. I always wanted to go to America. And I had like 3 days in New York City. And after 2 days, I made up my mind, I want to stay. And then I stayed, and everything fell into place. And I got, you know, somehow I got in touch with great people. We had a great person. He was an advisor. He became the American management later on. His name was Alex Grobe. He was a psychologist as well. And he hooked me up with a person. He was a guitar player. Joey Vallon was his name. And he was supposed to show me around, like, all the club scenes and the record stores. And back then, record stores were open 24 hours, 7 days a week. Like, for example, Tower Records. And I was in the record stores all night. And we went to all these great clubs. And then one night, Joey said, hey, you want to go to another club? And I said, well, you know what, Joey, in Europe and in Germany, we have really great clubs as well. It's not that much different. So he said, what do you want to do? You know, you want to go to your hotel? And I said, how about we do a little jam session? So we went to his place, and I told him how it is in Europe. And in 87, people didn't really know what it was like in Europe. They didn't know about, like, they always were asking me, are you coming from East Germany or West Germany? And I said, no, you know, I'm from West Germany. You cannot come from East Germany. It's impossible with the wall and stuff. So Joey was asking me about all that stuff, and he was really interested. And I told him about my first promotion tour to Hungary with our first album, Burning the Witches. And on the border, they took all our records away. It was vinyl. And I said, no, it's pornography, because there was this painting, there was this naked woman. It was a typical metal album cover, you know, the warlock and the little naked woman chained to a candle, and it was so metal. And they said, no way. So they took all the records away, and then we went to Hungary, and we had no chance to do any promotion, and it was really strange. And I told my former manager, I said, man, I want to go back. It's so different. And you know, and I told Joey about it. So that night we wrote our first song for the Triumph and Agony album, was called East Meets West. When East meets West is going to be a hell of a mess. And I went to Alex Grobe, and I said, yeah, you know, it was cool. Clubs were cool. Record stores were great. But I think we wrote a killer song. He said, well, play it for me. And we recorded it on a little Walkman. And it was East Meets West. He said, man, I love it. It's cool. It seems you guys have good chemistry. So he said, why don't you guys go on, write more songs? So we wrote more songs. 3-Minute Warning the next night. It was actually a song about my manager, like a stranger in a strange land, because Alex, he was an American citizen, but he was born in Switzerland. So it was perfect for us to, talk German, English and stuff in a mixture. And yeah, and then the second song came out great. And then Joey showed me all kinds of things. Like he was a little bit older and I was always very curious. So one time he said, hey, shall we play the Ouija board? And, and I thought, wow, I think that's forbidden in Germany. And I was curious. I said, let's do it. So we played the Ouija board every night. All kinds of things happened. But one time I told Joey, I said, can you ask this spirit or this energy on the board if it has a message for me? He said, okay, I can do that. And the message was make time for love. And I thought, oh, that's our ballad. So we wrote a beautiful ballad called Make Time for Love. And then Alex said, hey, why don't you guys go into a studio, record demos? Because I think the songs really sound great, so do it. So we went into the Power Station studio, which was the most expensive studio back then and one of the best studios in the world. And we recorded our demos there. And we had a great engineer. His name was Steve Rinkoff, and he was later on going to Jim Steinman, doing all the Meatloaf records. He was a young guy, but he was very talented. And Joey and Steve, everybody said, oh, Doro, just, sing, you're great, sing your heart out. And I was screaming and singing, and I could definitely be myself. And it was so amazing that I could go back to whenever, when I started, I just did what I wanted to do. So there was a feeling I was totally free again, and I could do the Triumph and Agony album. And I think that was one of the reasons why it became so successful, because I could just let loose, scream, build it out, and it was really loud but pure and heavy. And that's what I learned, that you just when you give it your all and when you can be yourself, I think that's the best form, definitely for rock and metal. And it was the most important record for me, Warlock, Triumph and Agony. Then we lost our name to my former German manager. He died. He's actually not anymore alive. And it took me 20 years to get the name Warlock back. But in these 20 years, we had to go by Doro. It was never my plan. I never planned a solo career. But the record company said, we are not interested in another name. Call it Doro. Maybe the fans will know who it is. So we called it Doro. And then the second album, which I thought was really important, and I think I learned the magic of songwriting. I went to Nashville in 1991, and I went to Nashville for 16 years, and I got great, people there, great songwriters, and I could definitely, experience the art of songwriting. And the album was called True at Heart, and it had, I think, the most deep and sensitive and beautiful and meaningful ballads and special songs. There was one talk song I loved, Fortune Teller. So I think, these two records, Triumph and Agony and True at Heart, they were the most important records in my life. And I could experience different sides of, music and feelings. And True at Heart was not a metal record at all, but I think it had the most beautiful songs. And I had a fantastic producer. His name was Barry Beckett. He was from the Muscle Shoals connection, and he was one of the best producers in the world. He did the Rolling Stones. He did the Black and Blue album, I think, or definitely a Stones album, Etta James, Bob Dylan. So he was he was a great producer. He's not anymore alive, but he hooked me up with all these great musicians in the studio. For example, Leland Sklar, the bass player with the long beard. I don't know if you know him. He played with Phil Collins and Pink Floyd and top-notch players. And I had the great chance to be part of this, so and it made me feel really I can show different sides of what I like. And So True at Heart was one of my favorite records, but it wasn't a metal record. So the metalheads, they were surprised. And I thought, ooh, and it had some heavy songs on it, some rock songs on it, but it was not like the Triumph and Agony, for example. But I loved it. I loved every single song on it as well. And I like it from extreme hardcore, heavy to super, super sensitive and soulful. So the whole spectrum of feelings and human nature.
Are there like some specific songs from your like own discography which you wouldn't want to perform, for example, nowadays, that they are like so difficult to sing, for example, or some songs that you don't want to perform in some other way, for example?
Oh, difficult to sing. I think every song I would love to sing. This one song I mentioned of the True at Heart album called Fortune Teller, that is easy. That is not so easy to perform because it is a talk song. The verses is only talk. It's a story. It's a great storyline. And then the chorus is a big, beautiful chorus. The most beautiful melodies I've ever, came up with, I think. And I wrote it with a great songwriter, Gary Scruggs is his name. And he's awesome. And it's very hard because the engineer has to be totally great, and because the talk is so low volume, and it's very mystical, and then it goes full out the chorus, so that is very difficult to perform, but I love it, and sometimes we do it. And other than that, every song can be, from whatever the heaviest songs, like on this new album, there's one song, it's called I Will Prevail. It's really, really hardcore, heavy, and sensitive songs like Best in Me, that's for the fans, because I feel they bring out the best in me. So sometimes we actually play it back to back, first the heaviest song and then the most soulful song, and it works good. So I would say, yeah, Fortune Teller is difficult. And there's another talk song on the Angels Never Die album that's called Born to Bleed. It has great drums, like some voodoo drums, Fortune Teller as well, and it has a talk in the verses, and then heavy chorus, like beautiful melodies. So these songs, they are like technically very difficult to play live, and the audience, when they are totally screaming and loud, then you can't hear the talk part. So, and but these two songs, they're more difficult, they're more involved, but they're great. So but everything else, singing wise, it's all cool. I can sing, yeah. And the guys in the band, they have to play, nice, that I feel comfortable. So if there's somebody, who's not playing, who's not sensitive enough to play the ballads, then it's difficult. But if everybody's vibing, has the same, feel, and when they feel a song, that's good, So, yeah, that's important, and yeah.
So, like you already mentioned, there is an upcoming album coming entitled Conquerors Forever Strong and Proud, and it will be out on 27th of October through Nuclear Blast.
Yes, yes.
So are there like some new things vocally on the upcoming album that you haven't tried before?
Actually, yeah, 2 nights ago, I met my manager in the gas station, and we exchanged records because I have the record here, and I just saw it. It's this one is the picture disc, actually a double album. That's the one. I can't believe it. It's out. It's not out yet, but I've seen the first things, and yeah, that's the CD with a big booklet, big booklet, and yes, the album, and it has a timeline on it, which I think the fans might really like, because the timeline, that's the title. Oops. And here is like all like the first steps. My first band, that's a black and white picture, Snakebite, and then you see James Hetfield and Lemmy, great rock, Monsters of Rock festivals, Pete Steele and Dio, and all these cool memories. So it's a whole timeline of, from actually 1980 to now. And And on this CD, there are 20 songs, which I think I Will Prevail is probably the heaviest. And it's a little bit different. It's a little, it's maybe heavier than usual, a different heaviness. I see you have the Slipknot cap on, so you might like that a lot. So I would say that's the heaviest song on this album, and it's a little bit more, how can I say it, like modern sounding maybe. And Children of the Dawn, that's one of my favorites too. That's an anthem, and that's the opening track, because I love it so much. And vocal wise, yeah, the duet Living After Midnight, it was a no-brainer. The duet with Rob Halford, that was great, easy, a couple of takes, then it was done. But Total Eclipse of the Heart, that's the second duet with Rob Halford, and there was a wish of Rob, and he sang it, and I heard his vocals, and I thought, man, I better step up to the plate, because I knew he loves that song so much, and he sang it with so much passion. So I gave it my all, to do a good job. So I think Total Eclipse of the Heart, it was actually, it was different, it was special, and yeah, and it was that was actually the biggest adventure on this album. And then on the bonus CD, there's one song of the Kill 'Em All album by Metallica, the Four Horsemen. And that was a challenge too, because I loved Metallica. We played in the early 80s, we played a lot of gigs together. I saw Cliff Burton, and we became friends, and that was awesome. And I always want to say thank you to Metallica and give honor for 40 years of Kill 'Em All. So I covered Four Horsemen, and that was fun. But it was so hard to check out the lyrics, and and I got some lyric sheet, but and I thought, man, James Hetfield, it sounds totally different what you see on the lyric sheet. And so that was fun. That was fun to do. And then I just did it actually for myself, and I played it for some friends, some people. And then I said, oh man, you got to put it on your album. It sounds good. So we did. And I would say Total Eclipse of the Heart and Four Horsemen. Like the cover songs are sometimes, they are more involved, because you have to try to, to at least, have the same level like the original, or try to make it even better and more interesting, that people say, hey, it's definitely worthwhile to do a cover version of that song, because sometimes the original is unbeatable, but sometimes it can be even more.
Well, there is a lot of good examples of covers that are actually better than the original version. So that can happen, but if it's like a big classic, it's pretty hard to top it.
Totally. I sang one time a cover version on our last album, Forever Boys, Forever United. It was our first double album, and it was an Italian song. It was Caruso. And I always went to an Italian place. My band, they love Italian food. So I always heard one song. And I went to the waiter. I said, man, what is that song? And I always said, oh, we don't know. So I went many times to this restaurant. One time they played the song again. And I got this one waiter. He said, that's Caruso, and Pavarotti is singing it. Luciano Pavarotti is singing it. And I thought, man, I want to cover that song. I loved it so much. And Luciano Pavarotti is, one of the best singers, classical singers. And I loved him so much. And I grew up with classic a little bit because of my parents. So I wanted to cover that song. And that was a real challenge.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, but luckily I have an Italian guitar player in my band, and Luca, and he helped me, and, with pronunciation and stuff, and then it came out so good. And that's actually a bonus track on our last album, Forever Boys, Forever United. But all the Italian fans, they love it. And Luca's mom, she listened to it. She said, it's perfect. And I thought, okay, if Luca's mom says
that's
it's good,
the best feedback you can get for it.
Don't touch it. Yes, that's what you hear. That was a real challenge, but it was great. We never did it live. But on the record, I think it sounds great. And it's something really different. It has nothing to do with metal, but I think it's awesome. And And it's awesome. It's awesome. I love it. I love it.
So I have few questions left, and the second last one actually goes that, do you remember what were your parents' reactions when they heard that you have started singing like more heavy metal and go like more rock direction as a vocalist?
Actually, yeah, you know, my parents were pretty cool. My dad, he was my best friend. He's not alive anymore. My mom still is alive, but I was one time very sick when I was 15, and I was in a hospital for 1 year, and I wasn't sure if I would survive. And my parents, they were really, really worried, you know, a whole year of like, you know, yeah, like hoping that, you know, the daughter would survive. So I got out of this hospital, and actually 2 weeks later, I had my first band. There was Snakebite, and my parents were so happy. There was, you know, like alive. So they were always happy that I did whatever made me happy. And I told them, hey, you know, everybody knows it's sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but I'm not like that. I would never take drugs, you know, you can trust me. And I was every day in a rehearsal room every day. And, you know, and then I went to work. I was a graphic artist and, you know, got no sleep. So they were a little bit worried with my health, but they said, whatever makes the little girl happy, they support. And they supported me all along. And then they always came to our concerts. My dad was actually driving the first gigs, you know, but then my dad said, he said, Doro, look at it. And I said, what? And my mom, she was schlepping the Marshall amps. And she said, and my dad said, hey, you guys are working on your hair, you know, getting all dolled up, and your mom is schlepping the Marshall amps. And he said, that's the last time I will drive your equipment. And I said, oh man, I know what you're saying. That's not right. You know, mom and dad schlepping the equipment and we getting all dolled up, because it was, you know, in the time of hair metal, you know. So that was the last time my dad drove us. And then I drove the tour bus for, you know, a little while. But I had really cool parents. So, and yeah, they came to all the concerts. And then when we had the first song, there was actually Für immer, the first German song on the Triumph and Agony album, was called Deep Inside My Heart, Für immer. And then it was, it's kind of a special song. It's not a ballad, but my dad, he loved it. My mom loved it. And then they said, man, it's really nice music you guys are doing. So everything else before, you know, they didn't say a word. I think they didn't like it so much. But Für immer, you know, there was a song which so many people fell in love with. And, yeah, and my parents, they liked it. So I got full support. And, yeah, I was really lucky. And, you know, I'm an only child. That's the only thing. It's tricky now. My mom, she's a little bit older, and between touring and doing records, you know, and then taking care of mom, that's hardcore, I tell you.
That's like, heavy. That's heavy metal.
Yes, real heavy metal. But she did everything for me, and now it's my turn. I will do everything for her, and you know, and it's that's a different animal now, but it's cool. It's cool, you know? And she's really sweet. So yeah, and I'm actually just at my mom's place doing interviews, you know, from my mom's place, because then she's not so lonely, and you know, and so yeah.
So last question before we'll end this is that any kind of advice that you would like to give to a young metal vocalist who is just about to start their journey? For example, some girl who is becoming a front woman in a metal band.
Yes, I would say, hey, just be yourself. Follow your heart. You know, when you follow your heart, you know, when you feel good, do what's right. Do it when you can. Every day, it's good to practice, you know, because then you get better and better, and you know, and you get more confidence, you know. And I would say, try to find good people, you know, who support you, who believe in you. If nobody believes in you, just believe in yourself and do it 110%, and just go for it, and expect there will be always ups and downs. It's the nature of the beast, but just do it. Do what you feel, and do what is your nature, you know. Don't fake anything. Don't mimic anybody. Just be yourself, and just do it and go full force, always give it 110%, and and you will succeed, just, and don't let them bastards get you down. Just like, do what you feel is right, and what you feel comfortable, and I believe then people, they will get it, and they will love it, and and yeah, if you stay true and honest to yourself, I think that's all it takes, and do it, on a regular basis. I think it's very important to not take too many breaks, because then it's very, it's hard to, to get into it again. So sometimes, I tell you, you want to hear one funny story for before we wrap up?
Tell me.
When we first formed Warlock, our rule was to practice every day. So
Okay.
no exceptions, not Christmas, not New Year's Eve, every day. So we were practicing every day. And if somebody would be late, $50, which was it was so much money. So, and I was always late because I had to work. And the people at work, they said, "Hi, Doro, can you stay a little bit longer? You have to finish something up." So anyhow, so we were working every day, practicing every day. One day, our drummer, who was a very good drummer, his name was Thomas, he said, "Hey, guys, I have to tell you something. I have to take a little break, 2 weeks." And we said, "No way. Our rule is everyday practice." He said, "I have to go with my parents. We have to take a vacation." And we thought, "Oh man, that's not cool, taking a vacation with your parents, when you're a teenager, not cool." And we said, "No, Thomas, you have to stay. We have to practice." And he said, "Okay, I talked to my parents. I will not go with them." Okay. So then he came back, he said, "It's impossible. I have to take this vacation with my parents. I promise, it's the last one, but I have to do it." So we thought, "Oh, okay, then okay." So we met every day in our rehearsal room, practicing, but without drums. It was no fun, and we couldn't get it going, And there was this one guitar player, and he had a friend. His name was Michael, and he was very young. I think he was 14 or something. But he was a punk. He had like the spike hair, and he was a punk. And then he said, "Hey guys, I can sit behind the drums. I can play a little bit drums." And we said, "No, you're too young, and you're a punk." I mean, we were only 2 years older, but anyhow, he was too young, he was punk. So we said, no, don't, please don't. Many days later, we got so fed up with just practicing without drums. One day we said, "Hey, you know what, Michael, you want to sit behind the drums and just play a little bit?" And he was like, yes, So he was playing drums, and that was it. And then our drummer came back, took vacation with the parents, and then we said, "Thomas, that's it. You didn't practice with us. You're out of the band, and Michael is in." And he was so shocked, and he was devastated. And he was a great drummer. But that was it. So that's how we formed Warlock. And a friend of Peter, he was in the band. And then we said, "Okay, one rule, you have to have long hair." And he said, "No problem." And that's how it went. So don't take too long breaks. It's not good.
Hey, thanks a lot for this long chat, and all the best for the release for the upcoming album.
Thank you. It was great talking to you. Thank you for having me on your show, and all the best to you and to everybody. And yeah, keep on rocking. And I hope I see you maybe next festivals, next gigs. And
hopefully you will come to Finland with the upcoming album.
Yes, we will. I love Finland, and my promoter Silke, she is living in Finland, so
Yep.
it should be good. And yes, thank you so much. So yeah, then have a good night, and I see you soon. And
We will see you soon.
Okay.
Thank you a lot for doing this.